Thank you for joining us for another episode of Beyond the Table. Well, really, we are having conversations around a table and giving us the opportunity to go and live out this conversation, whether it be in your culture of your family, your home, your business, your church, or faith. And I think a lot of times we have conversations at tables, but then we don't take them beyond that. And so our goal is to help maybe encourage, inspire, or give a couple of thoughts that you can leave a conversation and go have other conversations that will encourage one another. And today I have an incredible guest with me. So excited to have Edmond Long. He's a owner-operator of Chick-Fil-A here in the Mont Belvieu area, as well as, I guess that's Baytown, Mont Belvieu, right on the edge. Going to be a couple of stores, and one of the best leaders I know, and one of the most wonderful companies that I definitely love eating at. I should have bought stock in them a long time ago. But Edmond, man, so good to have you here today, and appreciate you coming and joining us, being a part.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I love our partnership. I love our friendship.
Yeah,
and so I was really excited at the invitation to come out and get to talk about some of this stuff.
Man, I love it. Why don't you just give us a little bit about your story, your journey? The other day at the groundbreaking, you shared some of that, and man, it was really neat just to see God's hand on your life and how, even when we don't recognize it, He's still ordering our steps if our heart is toward Him, and that's evident with you, man, and your family.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I grew up in a pretty normal upbringing. My dad was a pastor, mom a school teacher, got two older sisters, then went to college for a little while trying to figure life out, joined the Marine Corps, ended up graduating college, getting commissioned in the Marine Corps, where I flew helicopters for about 13 years. A lot of fun, got to live in some great places and do fun things. And when we were, my wife, during that time, I got married, had 3 kids, and my wife and I knew that the end was kind of coming to our time in the Marine Corps, and so we began praying about what do we want to do. And I've always been the adventurous spirit. My wife, she supports that to an extent.
Yeah.
And so I really started praying that I would be okay with, even if God didn't call us to some big, huge adventurous type lifestyle. And I didn't know it, but at the time she began praying that her heart would be open to moving anywhere in the world that God would want her. And so we probably spent 6 or 8 months praying separately and together over what God would do with our lives, and got contacted with a friend that I graduated high school with, who was a Chick-fil-A owner-operator, and he went on and on about how great it was. So I applied and interviewed for about 1.5 years.
Oh, yeah.
It's a long process, and we got selected 8 years ago, and our first store was down in Corpus Christi in a mall.
Okay.
We spent 4.5 years in the mall down there. And that's back to what you said a second ago. Not really, sometimes we don't see right in front of our face how God is ordering our steps, and we tend to question, where did you go, God?
Yeah.
And He's shown us that He has been right there the whole time. So we moved up here in December of 2020 and took over at Chambers Town Center February of 21.
Wow.
Hit the ground running. And last year on March 1st, we interviewed for the store that'll be here. And on March 2nd, we got the nod that it was going to be ours. And here we are, a year later.
I love it. One of the things you said, I think, is so key in relationships, especially in marriage, is your wife didn't pray, God, change your heart. Your wife prayed, God, speak to my heart. I think sometimes in relationships, we seek to make the other person better instead of make ourselves available.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that, it's just whenever we say, God, help us, I think it allows stronger relationships. And, as you guys got to experience, going some pretty incredible journeys.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big formative time in our life together as a married couple, in our spiritual life as a married couple, going through that, both praying that God would changed each of our hearts to what we thought the other one would be good for the other one. Wow. And then God ended up giving us something that has allowed us both to really flourish.
Man, I think that's the picture of love when you're deferring to the other person. Something that's absolutely amazing. Man, I want to talk just a few moments, if we could, just about our, I say, and it is our partnership, our relationship, because conversations I got to have with those involved in Chick-fil-A. But man, I'm really excited about you guys building out front here on the premises and on the property. I feel like it's just going to be a great relationship, a great partnership. And so talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, practically speaking, it works out well if the one day that we're closed is the day that y'all
busiest
are
day I have.
So that works out really well. But I think it's also a really good representation of the values that we both hold are the same, but they're maybe viewed from the outside a little bit different. Like, I'm a business, you're a church. So with that comes certain expectations from both sides, but it's a great picture of how you can have those same values and live that out regardless of where you are. And that ministry can take place in both those places. Yeah.
And I think you should. I think, in the Old Testament, there was a great power whenever the kings and the priests came together. It allowed, I've always been a proponent that broke can't fix broke. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I think sometimes we despiritualize finances or we under-spiritualize business, where I think the presence of God and the Spirit of God and the values that come from God's Word are actually very harmonious, whether it be in business or, in church.
Right.
I don't see much of a separation. And I put church in quotes because Jesus spoke often of the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And when he was speaking of the kingdom, he's talking about that kingdom, those principles, those values, those attributes should flow into every segment of life. And we've done a great, great job of separating them.
Right.
And my hopes is in a very, very small microcosm that people can see, this can be bridged.
Right.
And this is the way it actually can look and work well together.
Yeah, it's something I try to, you understand something, but trying to explain it to somebody else is kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah.
But this provides a lot of really good conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And for a lot of different reasons, but this provides a really good conversation around that concept.
Yeah.
That it's not, you don't just go to church on a day of the week and that's it.
Yeah.
You get to live it out, and it may look a little bit differently.
Sure.
But you get to live it out on a daily basis. And I couldn't be more excited about getting to do this. And it goes back to, I talked a little bit at the groundbreaking about the word Rehoboth.
Yeah.
And that story from Genesis, where it says, and now the Lord has allowed us to have this, and now he's allowed us to not, be influenced by anyone else. No one else is coming in trying to do this. He's given us this, and we're going to flourish in the land. And that's what this opportunity is for us. That's the way that we view this. This is something that God's given to us, and he's giving us the opportunity to flourish here. And it's just, I think it's beautiful that our relationship began first, and now we get to live this out together. So
I do too. I think it's a wonderful picture. It's funny because last week I got a phone call about the other property on the other side. And I just told them, I said, no, I'm not interested in doing that. And their first thing was, they said, well, you just did it for Chick-fil-A. I said, yeah, they carry different values than you do. And it was one of those things I thought, and I shouldn't have said it, but it
happens.
It just happened. And so I said it, and he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, at its bedrock, we share common values. I said, at the bedrock of your organization and mine, we don't have the same values. I said, so I really don't want you on the front of our property. I said, I think your business has value. I think your business can add to the community, but we don't share enough common ground for you to move into my neighborhood.
Right. And that's a hard thing to say, but when it's worth saying, you got to say it.
You do. And not everybody understands that. And he did afterwards, because I gave a lot more examples, and he was like, oh, it makes perfect sense. And so, but I do think it's a wonderful picture of partnership. And I think that the church and the business world needs to do more of this, because I think we have more in common than we have separate.
I agree.
And my desire as a pastor is not to go in and teach somebody or tell somebody how to run their business, because I think I bring something else to the table. Mm-hmm. For other business leaders, I feel like I can help them in their relationships, in their marriages, with their children, even with their cultures and their organizations, because I've done some coaching of that nature. They're pretty good at making money, and so I'm not gonna. That's not my thing, But in other areas, I think that we can bring a lot to the table. But just as that, I say that I think the business world can add a lot of value back to the church, other than just, and not even a monetary value, but learning the principles of how things operate and function.
Yeah. And what it takes for them to operate and function.
Yes.
I agree completely. And I think a lot of the time, and growing up as a pastor's son, I was able to kind of see the side of things. I don't mean a negative way, but see the side that, your standard church member may not see. Yeah. And when it works well and when it doesn't. And I agree. I think there's a lot that's that mutually beneficial relationship that we can each get from each other.
Let's one of the things I appreciate about Chick-fil-A Universal, and that is Chick-fil-A's culture. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, Chick-fil-A has popularized the phrase "my pleasure." Right. But we're living in a culture that they kind of clash.
Yes.
And so how do you continue to cultivate, and how does Chick-fil-A give you guys maybe tools and resources that help cultivate that continual, culture of excellence, not just in the presentation of the food and the delivery of food within the quick systems, but also in the way that personnel is engaging the public? It's definitely work. But Chick-fil-A big Chick-fil-A does a great job of staying kind of in the forefront of what's the latest research, what are the trends, what's working and what's not, and just kind of giving not a fire hose, but pushing that information to us and allowing us to choose what works for my team. Each year we do a conference. It's Chick-fil-A staff members and operators and spouses. This past year, I think it was around 9,000 people. And so they do it in a different location every year. But this past year, the theme was culture by design. Yeah, so
and it has to do with, your culture is going to be something.
It is.
And you can write something down on a piece of paper, put it up on the wall, make it beautiful. But if you're not working in it, just like in a garden, I can plant tomato seeds, but if I just throw them down and don't do anything with it, who knows what's going to come up.
Right.
And that's the mindset that we take is I have to decide what that culture is. And this goes back to, the selection of the people, making sure that the values align, that we're selecting the right people, whether it's for operators or the operators selecting their staff. So it begins there, but then it's determining what do I want my culture to be.
Yeah.
And so honestly, my job, and I get asked a lot, sometimes in a joking way, but what do you really do on a daily basis? And I get it. A lot of times it's walking around the dining room talking to people. But my primary job is being sure that our staff is engaged, that they feel known, that they feel encouraged, that they feel safe, but that they know they can grow.
Yeah.
And so that's where I spend the majority of my time is figuring that out, working on that. And that's how I think that's how we do what we do. But from the support center side at Chick-Fil-a Inc., there we have consultants, we have so much support staff.
That's so good.
That's directly related to ensuring that our growth and our development and the way that we're growing and developing other people is happening. And the byproduct of that is fast service, good food, good environment, those types of things.
I think that I think people who don't understand ownership, or really, there's a lot of things about leadership I think people miss. One is thinking time is not wasted time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, you have to calendar thinking time. It doesn't just work itself into the schedule. It's got to be scheduled, and it's got to be prioritized, because the urgent will always take preeminence over that time of really, truly thinking and productive thinking. And I could do a whole podcast on what it means to have thinking time and yet have it productive thinking time. The other thing is, as a business owner, as a pastor, I think one of my biggest responsibilities is to create, cultivate, and guard the culture that we want to have, work in, and flow in. And I think it's Sam Chan or someone like that who said the definition of culture is the way we do things here.
Yeah.
And whenever you're hiring, every new hire has the opportunity to enhance your culture or try to change your culture.
Yes.
So every new person who walks into church, they have the opportunity to enhance our culture or change our culture. Mm-hmm. With every employee you hire, which a ton of them,
right,
of all skill sets, all backgrounds, all ages, they have the opportunity to change the culture or enhance the culture. So if you're walking around, and people are like, what do you do all day? They have no idea how difficult it is to keep culture between the ditches, because culture drifts quickly.
It does. It does, especially when you don't know what you want out of your culture.
Yeah.
Or when you think, when you're being distracted by other things, comparison to other people, comparison to other businesses, and you try to make it what somebody else is doing. If it's not who you are, if it doesn't reflect your own values, then it's going to be very easy for that culture to drift.
Yeah.
With enough people pushing it to one way, it's going to go. So it takes a lot of intentional effort to keep, like you said, to keep that in between the ditches.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I think one of the most dangerous places we can live is in the realm of comparison. Mm-hmm. Because none of us are a good imitation of somebody else.
Right.
But we're a great uniqueness of ourselves.
That's right.
And so being that as, whether it be Chick-fil-A or whether that be us as a church or any business, I think that they have to find, okay, what is our uniqueness and what is our niche? And, one of the things I've loved about Chick-fil-A is your menu. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I say that you took chicken salad sandwich off. Other than that,
I miss that as well.
I think everyone does. Yes. But, I love the fact that you guys are like, this is what we do. Mm-hmm. And we do it the best.
Right.
And we do it the quickest. Mm-hmm. And I think that's phenomenal, because I think if you try to be the master of everything, you're actually good at nothing.
That's right. Yeah, it's that's a very common conversation, our menu.
Sure.
And in fact, it was over a year ago, we started hearing this phrase, stay original. And they've made T-shirts and sweatshirts and all that, and hats that say "Stay Original" or just say "Original," and that's why our sandwich is called the Original Chicken Sandwich. But it's going back to why are we here? Don't forget that.
Right.
Get why we're here. And don't try to change just to keep up with what someone else is doing. So it's a good reminder on our culture to stay who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I use a phrase often, keep the main thing the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, it really creates clarity for our culture to flow in. But when you're trying to be everything to everybody, man, that just creates a lot of chaos all the way around.
Absolutely.
And so, well, man, I'm excited for the partnership. I'm excited for what I really and truly, man, I'm excited about what God is doing in your family, in your business, in your organization, because I get a sideline seat to watch, and it's a lot of fun to watch and to see your leadership shine in so many different areas, and how you're so involved in the community as well. And man, I think that's huge, because a lot of people aren't, who actually own businesses or things of that nature. But I've watched you and your family be so involved. And so, man, I applaud that. I thank you for that and appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you. And I said it before, and I'll keep saying it. I'm so grateful for our relationship. And this, we wanted when we were interviewing, when we were still in Corpus Christi, all that my wife and I wanted was a place where we could come to and let that be it.
Yeah.
We've been here 3 years now, and this is the longest we've ever lived in a house. And you were pretty excited about that. 17 years of marriage and 3 years is the longest we've been in one house. And so, but when we got here, I knew the first day that our kids went to school, when they came home, and all three of them talked about how great their day was, that we had found that place.
Yeah.
And so we just, maybe it sounds cliche to some people. I don't know, nor do I particularly care, because it's true to it's in my heart. We just want to honor God with this opportunity.
Yeah.
I have no misconceptions that it's because of Him that I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to get it right every day, and I know that.
Who does?
Yeah, and I don't think that He expects me to. But my number one desire in my heart is just to honor Him with the way that I lead my family and my business, and I just hope that I'm able to do that.
Well, I think you're doing a phenomenal job, and it's funny, because when we were going through this process and we were talking to all the Chick-Fil-A folks, and because I don't know their process. I knew some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to other people who have a great relationship with upper management of Chick-fil-A. I told them, I said, listen, I want Edmond to be our owner out front. And they said, well, you don't get that choice. And I'm like, oh, well, then I need to rethink this, because I loved our relationship more than I even love the fact that, you have a business in front of the, property. And the more they talked, and there's like, well, he's got to go through this journey and this process, which is absolutely amazing, because you were already an owner. But they were like, just because you're an owner here doesn't mean that you just automatically rubber stamp for the next.
Right.
That they send you through a process again, which I know seeing you guys prepare for that was stressful.
Yes.
A lot of prayer, a lot of sweat, a lot of hard work, late hours. But I really admired that about the Chick-fil-A process, that they don't just, oh yeah, he's good here, let's rubber stamp for the second one.
Yeah, they take selection very seriously.
Yeah.
My wife was in the interview for a short period of time, and right at the beginning, and one of the questions they asked her was, will he know when he can't do it anymore? And what kind of support does he have to be able to do this? And she was I didn't know what questions they would ask her, so I couldn't prepare her for that. And she was not happy with me about that, but she handled it great, as she does with most everything. But, you know, her response, it was not, neither of us have ever been one to just tell people what they want to hear.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, let's just speak honestly. And, you know, it's up to you to take it however you're going to. But her response was kind of like a confused, what do you mean when I can't take any more? Like, we are his support network. He's rooted in Jesus. And if this is what God wants for us, then he's going to provide us the strength and he's going to provide us the endurance to get through it. So we don't start out on a journey wondering if we're going to know when to quit.
Yeah.
And I suppose that was the answer they were looking for. So it worked out pretty well.
Well, that was good. I remember they told me, they're like, well, you don't get to pick the owner out front. And I was like, oh boy. And I was, okay, so when do we sign all these deals? And that's when I found out that I didn't sign until after they said who the owner was. And I'm like, oh, well, then I'm good.
It works out well.
It works out great for me. And so, well, I'm excited. I know you guys are going to open. Do y'all have an idea of when this location's going to open?
I think the date right now is September 5th.
Okay.
We won't, and once the walls are up and they begin get going on to the inside, we'll have a much better idea of that date.
Sure.
We were a little bit ahead of schedule before last week's rain. So now we're back on schedule.
Okay.
So I think probably by early June, we'll have a much better idea of when it'll be. But end of August, beginning of September is about as close as I can get right now.
Well, hey, man, that's a better guess than a lot. So I think it's wonderful. And I know that we'll probably be some of the first in line over there.
I hope so.
And it's going to be, you know, it's way too convenient now, but that's okay. And so, but man, thanks for taking some time to spend with me today and just have this conversation. And I want to encourage anybody who has a business to really examine your culture and ask some of the questions of, you know, what can we do to make our culture the healthiest, the strongest, and the best that it absolutely can be. And I do appreciate that. I think that Chick-fil-A is one of the models out there that are doing it right. And it is because I think they resource you guys well, but then you guys take the resources and really implement them. And so that makes it huge. And so anyway, hey guys, thank you for joining me today from Beyond the Table. Hey, look forward to a new episode. They drop every Friday, 4 o'clock. I want to make sure that you know that. You can like, subscribe, share, all those good things. If it helps you, I promise you it'll help somebody else. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.